There is a thought most gardeners have at some point, usually quietly, usually without saying it out loud. That garden looks amazing. I should do what they're doing. It feels sensible. It feels efficient. Someone else has already worked it out, so why not follow the path that clearly works? And sometimes, for a short while, it does work. Then slowly things start to drift. This video is about why copying other gardens so often leads to frustration, even when the advice is good, even when results look proven, and even when you do everything right. Most people do not copy other gardens because they're lazy or unthinking. They copy because they try avoiding failure. They see strong plants, full beds, clean layouts, and confident results. They assume the decisions behind them must be solid. They assume the method's been tested. They assume the garden itself is proof. And on the surface, that assumption makes sense. If it worked there, surely it should work here. That belief is one of the most common turning points where a garden quietly starts heading in the wrong direction. The problem is not the idea of learning from others. The problem is what we end up copying. Because when you copy a garden, you almost always copy the parts that are visible. The spacing, the layout, the timing, and the structure. You are copying what you can see. But gardens do not behave where you can see them. They behave where you can't. Two gardens look almost identical and still behave completely differently. The beds might be the same size. The crops might be the same varieties. The mulch might even look the same. But below the surface, they are not the same system. One soil might drain freely while another holds water just long enough to stress the roots. One garden might warm quickly in the spring, while another lags behind by weeks. One might have loose structure built over years, while another still carries compaction from long before you arrived. None of that shows up in a photo, and none of it gets copied. What you're really copying is an outcome, not a process. You're seeing the final results of thousands of small interactions between soil, weather, biology, and decision making over time. When you copy that result, you skip the part where the garden actually became capable of producing it. That gap is where the trouble starts. This is why copying often looks successful at first. Seedlings establish, leaves open, plants look healthy, growth feels promising. You think, this is working, and technically it is. Early growth hides a lot. Plants run on stored energy. Roots have not yet explored deeply, and stress doesn't show itself immediately. The system's not been tested yet. The copied methods feel solid because nothing has challenged it. And then spring moves on, and the garden starts asking harder questions. This is where things begin to feel strange. Some plants surge ahead while others stall. Water no longer behaves how you expect. Feeding feels hit and miss. You find yourself intervening more often than you thought you would. You start adjusting spacing. You change watering habits. And you tweak the plan. And you wonder why the same method felt effortless somewhere else and really demanding here. This is not because you missed a step. It is because the garden you copied from was answering different questions. Gardens carry memory. Soil remembers what happened to it. It remembers compaction. It remembers disturbance. It remembers how water moved last year and the year before that. It remembers which crops pulled heavily from it and which left it stronger. When you copy another garden, You copy decisions without copying the memory, and memory does most of the work. This becomes especially obvious in spring. Spring is the season where hidden differences surface. Soil wakes at different speeds. Moisture moves unpredictably. Microbial activity does not follow the calendar. Roots encounter paths shaped by years of structure, not months of planning. The copied method assumes a uniform response, and spring exposes how uneven reality really is. This is why copying rarely causes sudden failure. It causes quiet resistance. You do not lose everything. You just work harder for the same result. You water more than expected. You feed more than planned. And you intervene more often than you thought you would need to. The system demands attention. The method did not transfer. The workload did. Over time, this creates frustration. You followed good advice. You trusted a proven system, and yet your garden feels more difficult, not less. The frustration often pushes gardeners to copy more. They look for another example, another layout, another success story. Each one adds confidence. Each one removes observation. And the gap between the garden and the plan grows wider. Every successful garden is a balance, not a fixed formula. A balance between water and air, between fertility and structure, between exposure and shelter, and between intervention and restraint. That balance is built slowly, through feedback. When you copy a garden, you import decisions without importing the feedback that shaped them. Spring is where that imbalance shows itself. This is also why copying advice often feels confusing. One person swears by a method and another says it failed them completely. Both can be right. The method worked in one system and destabilized another. Advice rarely travels alone. It carries assumptions about soil, climate and history that do not get stated. Spring does not forgive those assumptions. Experienced gardeners fall into this trap as well. In some ways, experience makes it easier to fall into. You recognize patterns. You trust methods that worked elsewhere. And you assume familiarity that equals compatibility. But familiarity does not mean fit. A method refined in one garden can totally disrupt another, especially when spring pressure is already high. There is a subtle shift that happens when copying takes over though. Instead of asking, is my garden doing? You start asking, why is my garden not doing what theirs did? That shift matters. One question leads to understanding, the other leads to comparison. Comparison shows learning. Gardens do not reward imitation, they reward attention. The gardens that become easier over time are not the ones built from borrowed decisions. They're the ones shaped by response. Spacing changes because roots behave a certain way. Mulch changes because moisture behaves a certain way. Timing shifts because the soil warms differently each year. Those decisions look obvious once they're made. They are not obvious before the garden shows you. This is why copying feels productive in winter. You are borrowing certainty. Someone else already worked it out. Someone else already tested it. You get to skip the uncertainty, but certainty borrowed from another garden collapses under spring conditions. Because spring does not test correctness, it tests responsiveness. This is also why copying scales badly. The more detailed the method, the more fragile it becomes when moved. The simple principles adapt. Detailed systems resist change. Spring forces that change. At this point, most gardeners ask the wrong questions. They ask, What am I doing wrong? A better question is, what is my garden responding to? Those two questions lead to different outcomes. This is where GrowTrack fits into the story and why it exists at all. Not as a way to copy success, not as a way to compare gardens, but as a way to stop losing your own context. The real reason copying becomes attractive is not lack of information, it is lack of continuity. Most gardeners lose track of what happened last season, how decisions carried forward, and why the garden is behaving the way it is now. So they look outward for answers. GrowTrack exists to keep your garden story intact, not to show you what someone else did, but to show you what your garden has already been telling you. When you stop copying outcomes and start tracking responses, patterns appear. You begin to see where growth slows every year, where water lingers too long, where stress appears late, not early. Those patterns do not come from other gardens, they come from yours. This video is not about rejecting inspiration. Other gardens are valuable, they spark ideas, they show possibilities, but they are starting points, not templates. If there's one idea to carry forward from this video, it is this. Copying replaces curiosity with confidence, and confidence without context always breaks under spring pressure. In the next video, we'll talk about calendars, why dates feel reassuring, why they create false confidence, and why following them too closely disconnects you from what your garden is actually doing. For now, understand this. When copying another garden backfires, it is not because the method failed. It is because your garden was never part of the decision. I'm Tony O'Neill and this is Simplified Gardening. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.